What's up, gamers? Dreamcastguy here, and this is going to be my very first re-review. Today we're going to be taking a second deep dive look on Cyberpunk 2077, since this week they dropped a mega patch. This has over 100 tiny changes to the game itself that are basically meant to try and just smooth out the experience. Now please be aware, this is adding in no additional content. This will not be adding in any new characters, cars, crazy chaos, or anything like that. This is simply trying to make the game that already exists a much more playable experience. Now, when I originally reviewed Cyberpunk, I gave it a 9 out of 10, in large part just because I completely loved the story itself. This is a rich world with deep lore, lots of side quests, and some stunning graphics at times, but I failed to see the fact that a lot of this game is kind of an illusion. Once you get beneath the surface, one of the core issues of Cyberpunk is that it's just constantly hard crashing. It's having crazy NPCs that are glitching out, and more than anything, you realize that the developers at CD Projekt Red, they've essentially made a grand magic trick. It's deceptive in so many ways, but the biggest issue is the fact that Night City, it seems so bright and alive, but the closer you look, the more you begin to notice that all the random events are just poorly scripted stuff. Like these guys right here, it's a bunch of cops shooting at some robbers and stuff. They will do this forever. Day and night, they will just continually shoot at each other with infinite health, and when you're driving past, it seems so cool to see this huge event taking place, but a lot of this stuff is just kind of window dressing. Stuff like stealth is totally broken, and a lot of the optional activities, while they were fun, a lot of this stuff is utterly useless. So what I wanted to do today is I decided to go and play through the game again. I created a new save file, and I spent all of yesterday just trying to cruise around Night City and see, is this an adventure that is now worth it? I want you to keep in mind that this is the PlayStation 5 version of the game as well, because I actually wanted to test this most specifically because even as I record this video, this game is still not on the PlayStation Store. You can only buy this physically. Now, originally I beat it on the Xbox Series X, and it was still a pretty decent game, but the primary issue, of course, was the fact that the game was just incredibly glitchy. Like, even if you were managing to have a fun time, I mean, stuff just continuously broke. Now, let's take a look at this. So while I was playing through this, I noticed that pretty much a lot of the major bugs have all been completely fixed. In the original versions of this game, there were just several side quests that were flat out broken. Like, even if you managed to do all the objectives, save the people you had to save, they would not work. It seems like every quest now can be finished. Everything, side quests, main quest, everything completely works. But the biggest thing I noticed is the fact that there is still a ton of visual glitches all over the place. Like, everything is constantly stuttering and stuff still. Like, when I'm just pulling myself out of this rubble, things are a little bit glitchy. Now, there's even a bunch of tiny glitches here and there, like right here, Jackie is supposed to be dropping this case inside the room. Instead, he dropped it outside the room, and so the object itself is floating. I can even jump on this floating box because it's not supposed to be here. These tiny errors, I'll be honest, I'm more forgiving of them because at least the game functions now. It's goofy that people are constantly turning bald and stuff. There is still some weird stuff where, like, cars are suddenly transparent. I did have a few times where I saw people walking down in random directions and slipping through the ground and stuff, but most importantly, I wanted to test the most major gripe, the thing it seems like players have hated the most, which was the police. So if you've never seen, like, any real gameplay for Cyberpunk, by far the biggest issue that just drove people nuts is the fact that the police are freaking wizards. They just magically appear. If you pick up a lollipop, if you shoplift something, or you shoot a random person, the police appear directly behind you in about 1 second. It was so annoying that if you did anything, the police would just appear. And part of the reason this was annoying is because once you started walking away, the cops were incredibly stupid. You could just pretty much walk around the corner of a building and the cops would stop chasing you. They couldn't drive, they couldn't really do any fancy pursuits, they couldn't make roadblocks. The police were so freaking dumb. Well, In this, they tried to solve this problem where at least the cops don't appear directly behind you. So I did this a lot. Now what happens is the police do still just magically appear, but now what happens instead is they're about 20 feet off. So whenever I actually commit a crime, here I shot a bunch of like random civvies and stuff, while I'm doing this, the police do still appear, and in fact, huge chunks of them. Like if you break the law, 10, 15 cops will just pop out of thin air to try and chase you down. Now, this is still just a very strange idea. The fact that they couldn't make it where police can drive, the fact that they can't just program it so there's more intricate pathing, I mean, the fact that they can't just call in actual nearby police, the fact that they have to spawn them, it looks so weird. Like something I had to just see for myself is that you could go into a building, go way up to the top floor of this building, and then start shooting people, and the police will still magically appear. Like they will just pop out of thin air and manage to start fighting you. And it does seem extremely goofy, the fact that there are just these magical police that still manage to be so completely ineffective. But I want to talk more about the game itself, because I think that I'm glad that they managed to smooth out this experience to a great degree. It's nice that there isn't just constant tiny glitches. I never once had my gun jam up. Everything managed to work really well. Before this patch, there were so many tiny issues that just managed to make the game pretty much unplayable. Like, there were people who had their cars explode while they were driving them. Certain sections of the city were just extremely low frame rates. It seems like they managed to normalize the experience. They really managed to make this a much more rounded off adventure. But I feel like now that I'm able to really notice how well the game runs, I definitely think the upgraded visuals and stuff they managed to do. Seeing this on my PlayStation 5, there are some sections of this town that look fantastic. Visually, I think that they've managed to do some tweaks and changes to make it so lighting effects are even better. Character models and faces specifically are still incredibly good, but now I'm able to just notice more often the tinier problems with Night City. Like still the fact that playing this on a PlayStation 5, there are just sets of the city, streets, blocks that are just totally empty, useless parts of this town that don't serve any purpose whatsoever. And when you're going through these completely empty parts of the town, it is a little bit depressing. Like, am I supposed to just go here and do these random jobs, beating up bad guys, get a little bit of street cred, and then go back to the main quest? There still seems like there is a very unfortunate hollowness to this game that I wish didn't exist. I wish that there was more in this game that managed to make it feel like a more fluid experience. I still love the writing. I absolutely love the voice acting. I feel like they managed to do so much correctly with the lore and the universe and stuff, but now I wish that there was something that was fun in between the main missions. Like seriously, going through this again, I really appreciate how much they managed to do right, but it still feels like a very paper-thin adventure at times. Why is there just so much of this town that's streetlights for no traffic? Why is there just so many sidewalks that nobody walks down? Why are there so many just times where you see a big, bright, flashy building, but you can't walk into it? Cyberpunk is a paper cutout. It is a story that we get a chance to project ourselves upon, but this is still technically the PlayStation 4 version of the game. This is not yet the next-gen patch. And I gotta be honest, right now it seems like this needs to be a next-gen game. If you haven't bought the game yet, and you're kind of waiting for this to become the grand Witcher 3 experience you're probably hoping it will eventually become, keep waiting. Wait for them to create the PlayStation 5 version, the Xbox Series X version, and wait for them to finish all the downloadable content. They've said there's going to be a series of huge updates that actually make the city much more vibrant. And maybe it's a good idea that if this story is not to your liking, continue to wait. A proper Cyberpunk will probably exist in the future. But if you do happen to be one of those people that are still curious about this experience, playing the game as it exists today, I can say that the game works better. There are still some occasional hard crashes, there are still some tiny glitches of the cosmetic variety, but now, if you want to see the game itself, it's definitely more playable than it has ever been. I'm still waiting for that next big update. Now that we've managed to patch a lot of the tiny problems, let's see something new. Let's see if this city can finally be epic. But what do you think? Have you had a chance to actually see this stuff? Tell me some of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.